Welcome to the Fencing Success Podcast, a show where fence and deck contractors are looking to grow their company and take it to the next level. Hey, I'm your host, Marko, Sipila, co-founder at FencingLaunch. In each episode, we will be interviewing successful business owners, vendors, and a whole lot more. We'll see you on the podcast. Hello and welcome to another podcast here. My name is Marko, your host of the Fencing Success Podcast and founder at FencingLaunch. And today we're going to be, interviewing an amazing visionary in the space. Her name is Renae, and she's a professional EOS implementer. And she's very passionate about working with visionaries and their leadership teams to clarify their vision, experience traction, and really foster a healthier team or work environment. So welcome to the podcast, Renae.
Yeah, great to be here. This is, of course, what I'm passionate about. So thanks for letting me share a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've known you for quite some time now. So, I feel like lately we haven't really caught up. So I'm sure we'll be catching up here on the podcast. But as far as your journey, because you've done a couple different things over the past 5 years or so, and I want to dive into all of the EOS stuff. So for those who don't know, it's Entrepreneur Operating System, and there's there's books on it. There's tons of resources on it. I'm sure the audience can get free information, but just kind of in a nutshell, like if you're a fencing contractor listening in here, this podcast, we're going to be talking about the EOS system and like what is it and why, if you're a bigger fencing business, like why you can get a ton of value if you were to follow something like this. And I imagine, Renae, you'll probably have some free, free tips here and there and stuff like that as well. But I guess just kind of right off the top here, like what prompted you to get into the EOS sort of community?
Yeah, so I have always loved the leadership coach, leadership development, all of those things. My brain naturally operates on how to harness people and operations and systems. And I'm kind of a geek about that kind of stuff and just really championing people to get to their next best, right? And so I was introduced to the book Traction by Gino Wickman, which was my first introduction to EOS. So I read the book and I'm like, where in the heck has this book been my whole life? This is how my brain is operating. Like, this is such a game changer. It's such a roadmap for success for businesses. And so, just diving into that, implementing it, decided, wow, my passion of leadership development, coaching teams, executive coaching, and EOS. Wow. Being an implementer is all of those things for me. And so what I'm finding is of why I love what I do so much is that businesses, they have a great product, they're succeeding in spite of themselves, so to speak. They're like, hey, we have a great product. We love what we do. They get to about 20% of where they could be, and they hit a ceiling because they don't have time to think of operations, or they just actually don't even know where to start, if I'm being honest. They have a team that started out amazing, and then as they grow their team, they're like, okay, I don't have the same space to invest in them like I did my first couple of employees and my first team members. I don't know how to scale that. Well, how do I make sure that everybody out in the field is giving the same type of service to every single client? How do I know that when someone calls in, everybody's getting that same? They're like, it's just so overwhelming to them. And so what we're able to do through EOS, which is again, Entrepreneurial Operating System, is harnessing that human energy so that every single team member, whether they're the founder or the bookkeeper, are 100% on the same page of the vision of the company and actually how it's going to get there. I joke a little bit that with visionaries, they have all the crazy up in their head. They aren't sure how to get that
going on.
They aren't sure how to get that down to their team, and the team appreciates it, but it can be like a little overwhelming. And so where I come in and where EOS comes in is, getting that vision 100% all on the same page with how they're getting there. Hey, Brian. And the 100% on the same page, but also getting traction of, okay, if they're trying to scale, what are the tools to do that? What processes? How about the people in the right seat? So we're able to just help with a lot of that stuff of every single business component in their business, we're able to get them on the right page without it changing who they are in their core. We actually help protect it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you say that, because in usually most businesses, you're going to have one person who's like the visionary, right? Like who's coming up with all the new ideas, who's, you know, trying to implement everything, right? Kind of wearing a lot of hats. And I see it all the time. I mean, especially, and we see a lot of fence businesses that do, you know, $1, $2, $3, $4 million a year, or even more. And they're just kind of, you know, they're just kind of strolling by, you know, like they're not really operating in sync. And I think that, you know, the companies that are like the companies that have really dialed in and clarified what the founder's doing, what the president is doing, what the general manager is doing. Like once you start to figure out, you know, each of the leadership team and what their specific tasks are and what they're accountable for, I just imagine the company flows a lot better, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just had a client, their particular team, great team, but just really getting everybody's role that they can just own that to a whole different level, and there's no overlap. Like it is just very clear and concise. I mean, powerful stuff starts to happen when everybody's with the same vision, with that same traction, and everybody knows their role and they're actually in the right seats. And we go through some training, some tools to make sure that everyone's in that right seat. So imagine a company that's at 3 million and they're like, we have such a great service, but we want more people to know about us. But they hit this ceiling that they have no idea how to scale past that with that same quality. And how do you pick the right team members to add to your team that has that same culture? And knowing that there's, EOS out there that literally helps you get your vision and your processes and, even what data, as business owners, we tend to make some decisions based on our feelings, whether that day we feel super overwhelmed or whatever it happens to be, or we're stressed, doesn't matter, or we're excited. We make some decisions based off of our excitement as well. So when we really help them figure out what their data, their scorecard for every single department and for their company scorecard, KPIs are a whole new ball game. And we find the ones that actually matter instead of like, maybe this one. And so that's pretty exciting to be able to help teams. Then, wow, you can double. Now you're at 3 million, the clear path to hit 6 and how we're going to get there. And the whole team is like 6 million. That's nothing. We can double with no worries and a clear path to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And you had mentioned books. So like in this space, what books do you recommend, fencing contractors listening today? Like what books do you recommend them just picking up just to kind of learn a little bit more about this? Obviously, watch the rest of the podcast, but like, what books do you recommend?
Yeah, so definitely the book Traction or Get a Grip. Either of those two, in that library. And of course, if they reach out, I'd be happy to also send them one. But Traction is the first book that Gino wrote that took, hundreds of years of business principles and tools and just put them and simplify them in a way that businesses can just implement. And then Get a Grip is like the fable story of Traction. So it's an easy read audio in the truck while you're headed out to job sites or to the office that just says, what does it look like for a company that's doing well, but that brings in an implementer or puts in EOS? So it's just like a fable story of a company that you get to see it in action and the change that happened. So those two, definitely Traction or Get a Grip, is the place to start.
Yeah. And just a quick question, because, I was even curious myself, is like, what is EOS for any size of business, or do you recommend smaller businesses looking into this as well?
Yeah. So the niche that it was created for is about 1 to 2 million to 50 million. That's kind of that sweet spot. There is a $1 billion company that runs on EOS, but it was made for entrepreneurs from that 1 to probably 50 million, 10 to 250 employees, 10 to 250 team members. So when we say employees, for some, independent contractors, their entire team, 10 to 250.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously there's a specific, like, ideal, like this size of business this range, you know, is should be operating on something like this. For somebody who's smaller, let's say they're at 5 employees, right? And they're at $600,000 a year in revenue or so. Like, obviously they can start reading about the books and stuff like that, because this is like to come, like this is the future, right? Like they're going to want to do this eventually, because once they start developing sort of team leads and people in their business that are going to, you know, essentially get the right butts in the right seat. Right?
I would say that, you know, because so there's 2 ways people can implement EOS. One, they can do it on their own. We call those self-implementers, or implementing, you know, without a professional implementer. And so, I mean, I have a client that they're not that 2 to 50 million, they're 500,000. And they're like, we need the coach to help us get there, because we're going to 5 million and we want to do it right from the ground instead of waiting until later. But they definitely can read the book. There are free tools. EOS has an amazing community to connect into what those resources are. I see that question, Brian, for a small company that might be an owner and 1 employee. So for those small companies that they're starting out, there's just, you know, maybe them and an assistant, something like that. If they start out just reading traction and picking those tools to implement kind of one at a time, reach out to an implementer like me. We help all the time, even if you're not a paying client. Read traction, have your other person read traction and say, this is how we want to build our business, and just know how you're going to scale. And then you pick appropriate tools. There's not a tool that's inside of EOS that you cannot run with a 2-man crew. Starting out small, and you just keep adding to those. So you definitely, for a 2-person, to Brian's question that he put in the chat, you know, imagine starting your business, a small fencing business that, you know, the sky's the limit, that you already know what your vision is, where you're going in 10 years, your 1-year plan, your 3-year picture. What are we working on the next 90 days to get us to our next best, which could be that 3rd team member, right? Knowing exactly what numbers matter so you can make scaling decisions. And also, you know, what are your core values? Who do you want to be as a company, so that when you are bringing on new team members and even talking with potential customers, you know exactly who the core of who you are is, instead of waiting till you're $1 to $2 million and having to kind of work backwards, if that makes sense. So you're building on that strong foundation.
Yeah, you can be more proactive, you know, as you grow the business there. That's a phenomenal point there. What would you say to, like, you know, like when customers start, I guess the way I should ask you is, like, when customers come to you and they're like, you know, let's say they're a fence business and they're asking about the consultate, like they're consulting with you, like, is this something we need, right? Like, what are the biggest challenges you see these companies having before implementing the EOS system?
Yeah, so just a lot of times is that they have a dream, their team has a dream, they're an amazing team, or they're, you know, hoping to scale to that, and they just are a little overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed. They're hitting some type of ceiling. So whether that is, you know, not enough profit, not enough time, whatever that happens to be, or maybe they feel that their team is feeling overworked or underappreciated, or they just feel they can't be in all places and be all things to all people, and they're just not sure how to remedy that. So really, they hit some type of ceiling. It doesn't matter what it is, and they will reach out. And so what we do is, you know, my core values help first. So whether they're small and they're not at a place maybe to pay someone like me, I will always help them. I'm like their phone a friend. But for the companies that say, hey, I just want to know, even before I read traction or after they've read traction, I really want to get a grip on how this is going to help me in my business. And they reach out to me, and we do a 90-minute EOS meeting with our leadership team that gives them, hey, these are the 6 key components in your business that EOS helps you get a grip on. And we just talk them through the main tools. And we really want them to say, hey, is this the right fit for us? Is this what we want? And hey, are we going to try to implement this on our own if it's a yes to EOS? Or while we would really benefit from having that coach that has session days with us, and we have access to them in between our sessions. And our
Right.
clients that pay us, usually 2 years they're with us. We work ourselves out of a job. We want
Yeah.
them to just really get a grip on their business and just set them up for success.
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine when you're helping these businesses, with EOS, I imagine there's probably a little bit of resistance of change.
Oh,
And so,
yeah.
like, what have you seen there? And do you have any stories?
Oh, I definitely have some stories. And so I just had actually two clients that have come on that they were trying to self-implement, which was totally fine. And they said, we really needed this outside facilitator and coach, that can make sure we're using the tools properly, that we're all in the same headspace. But also, this is my verbiage, not theirs, but give some sass when needed. Okay. Because when you have this leadership team, we're all wired differently. Those of you that are, watching or listening, we have like disc personalities and Colby profiles that we take, all this fun stuff of how we're wired.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes we will find the work that we do in the session room that maybe there's someone on the leadership team or people in the company that they're great at their job, but they're not a great culture fit. And they're like, okay, how do we handle this? How do we make sure that we have the right people? Or family businesses, working with people that are in business together. It's very difficult for them sometimes to like butt heads. And they're like, we just need this outside perspective. There's team members that they don't love change. And so what we're able to do as implementers inside working with that leadership team is we work with them to come up with a plan that actually steps EOS into their business in a way that does not overwhelm their team, and in a way their team is very excited about what EOS can do for their team. Because we do find that a lot. There is to where they're just butting heads, and so we kind of call it like leadership team counseling. Some of my clients are like, hey, our leadership team counselor's here. And we're like, okay, let's get us back on the same page. And what tools are we going to use to get you guys to where you want to be?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the biggest thing. And I just imagine, whether it's family business or just, everybody's got different opinions and stuff like that, because they could be aligned on the vision and the goals, but then everybody still has to be open-minded to follow sort of your lead, and how to implement this into the business. That way they can actually reap the rewards and the benefits of having it. Right.
And one of the things that we tell people that even if you hit the revenue, and the team members, that 2 to 50 million, 10 to 250 employees, if the leadership team is not ready to be open, honest, and vulnerable, right, then they're not quite ready yet. But if they're like, hey, we want to work towards that, then they definitely are. So to your point, they know the vision, or they're trying to get there, but they aren't sure the mode to get there. So getting a facilitator inside of the room that is listening to all the ideas and getting that outside perspective to actually help them make a plan. And then, man, my clients, one of them said, we've got more done in 90 days with you than we have in 5 years of moving the needle to where we know we can go. We've been trying 5 years, 90 days. We're farther than we've ever been. And that is kind of the normal. 90 days, it's a whole different world.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes just getting the owner out of his own way,
Yes.
We've seen that many times where, you got an owner operator who's trying to wear a lot of hats, and, they're doing 2, 3, 4 million a year. But, if you're just going to be in your own way, you're not going to get out of the way and hire some people to do some of this other stuff.
Yes.
Or even just properly delegate and let it go. Right.
Yep. And we work a lot with that, on that whole delegate, elevate. And I think that why it's so powerful when they say yes to EOS, and then also yes to a coach like me that's helping the team, is it takes the pressure off of the owner or their director of ops that feels like they have to be the answer man to everything. And it's like, no, we're locked away in a room, and we're just going to work on the business and get out of the business for a minute, get out of our own way. and they just get to be part of the team. And we use a lot of humor and a lot of, hard truths sometimes, like you only have this much time, we are our own worst enemies. And it's a lot of fun. It's challenging. It's very common inside of a session room with us, people get a little not even just overwhelmed, but a little frustrated where they've been. They're like, why couldn't we get here before, But it's just because it's a different mindset. You're working on the business.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be rocket science. Like a lot of these things,
so
people try to complicate, marketing, or complicate sales, or complicate, operating your business with accountability, and it's just like, it's a mindset change, like you said, and as long as you just implement it and you're open-minded, that would be awesome. Now, let's say you're the owner operator out there. You're a 7-figure company, you're cranking numbers, you're doing all right, but you just feel like you're just kind of spinning your own head, and what would you tell that owner who is not willing to give up certain things because of maybe quality, or the sales side, or because I'm sure you've seen that a lot, where like the owner's kind of doing a lot of things, and has to start to let some things go. Like, what do you tell them?
Yeah, so we call that letting go of the vine, right? And letting go of the vine. And is this, you're either going to choose to live with it like you are now, which means you bought yourself a job, not an asset or a business, right? And so that's a big thing. So, asking them, what do you want out of your business? What do you want your business to give you personally? Do you want more time with your family? Do you want to provide jobs, whatever it happens to be? And so for those people, I would just tell them, are they willing to take the risk that the way they're doing it now is actually why they're hitting the ceiling? And are they just really to take that inward focus of what that looks like? They can never get to the impact that they could make if they are wearing so many hats. And it's that smarter, not harder. And we really push our clients, is this it in its most simplified form? And baby stepping them to let go of the vine a little bit more and a little bit more. And I'll just share this quick story because I think it's so important to your point. Is I have 2 clients, and another implementer has another client that they shared this story. And I'm like, this is why we do what we do. The client is working, 80 hours a week. They are like, okay, I have a family, I have kids, I will want to have time with them, but which do I do? And they were holding on to the vine, wearing a lot of different hats. And part of the reason why owners do that is because it's their baby. They have built it up. They don't want people to take over too much. It's their reputation. It's all these great things.
Right. Yeah.
But they're like, but this isn't working. I have no balance. My team is frustrated. My wife is frustrated. Like, I'm just not doing it well. So when these business owners are wearing so many hats, to your point, if they're giving 20% in each position and at home, nobody's really winning. And so these are 3 particular business owners just very recently. What they've seen over the last year is that they were able, for the first time ever, to go on month-long vacations with their family in the high season.
Yeah.
And know that everything is operating beautifully. Everybody's in their right seat, and they're able to be what they should be doing with that visionary hat, and still having a life with their family. What good is to have a great business if you don't even get to have your relationships at home? And so when they get to share of the freedom that it brought, not only did their revenue, EOS ran companies, their revenue on average on the low end is 15 to 30% revenue increase.
Okay. Yeah.
15 to 30. And there's statistics to prove that. Imagine what that looks like. Or they're trying to get to the owner's box, right? You can't do that if you don't have a good system with your team and with your company. And EOS gives them whatever it is they're wanting from their business. We get them there.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
I love that. And, if you're a fencing contractor, or just even a home service business listening in here, if you want more freedom, if you want more
Yep.
impact in your service business, and you're above that $1 million mark, operating on something like this is just it's an amazing thing. And I think, we're honored to be able to see like how this works, and we can even self-implement a little bit ourselves. Obviously,
Yep.
the wise person would say, if you have the investment, you would invest in it. And you said, I mean, 20 or 25% increase in revenue, like
Oh yeah. I
it
mean, that
doesn't even
is,
matter how much it
yeah,
costs at that point. If
it
you're
doesn't.
increasing
Yep.
25%, like it's going to
And
pay the dividends.
yeah, and the thing is that if somebody's trying to self-implement, the books and the tools are there. It's like, okay, well, what's smarter, not harder, right? In its most simplest form, how am I going to get there the fastest? So where somebody gets with us in 2 years, it would take them 7 to 10 years on their own,
Right.
right? So 15 to 30% revenue increase just by getting all of this, and the owner actually and the team has more time and more freedom. It's a no-brainer. I mean, it's like, yeah, people want to give me money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it works. When was this, when was all of this created, I guess, founded and everything?
Yeah. So Gino's probably been doing it for about probably 20 years, actually. And then you've seen this huge increase. There are about 800 of us now in the past 12 years, 800 implementers worldwide that help companies get this into their business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's pretty
You're not a guinea pig. You're not a
accurate.
guinea
It is
pig.
not a guinea pig. It is
Yeah.
proven. And I think the thing that when people read traction, they're like, this makes sense. Like this makes sense. Is that one of the things that we really push with our clients is this in its most simple form, right? Because we're not out to impress people. We are out to
Yeah.
get results for our clients, for our team members, and live our best EOS life, right? People started a business because they wanted it for themselves, the impact that they make, and for their team. We get to help them do it even better and to the level that they wanted, but they just didn't know how to get there. And so for someone like me, getting that front row seat in their journey to get to see like, wow, our team has never been this healthy. Our team has never been this cohesive. Let alone the increased revenue and the more Google reviews, because I'm just telling you, that is what happens. You get so functioning as such a well-oiled machine, and you're all working with that same vision. It goes out, you get more the type of clients that you want. We teach them how to get more of the clients you want, repel the ones you don't want, right? Same with your team. And all of a sudden, you went from a company that you're like, I mean, we're cool, we do a good job, but you're like out of 5. You are now running at 100% everywhere at a top 10. Oh, hey, Susan. It's just a game changer. I mean, there are people that are like, hey, you have to work for an EOS train company. It's just such a different type of well-oiled machine. And I love getting to hear those stories. And when they share their new revenue goals that they're hitting, they're like, we didn't even know we could get here that fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like Brian had a question here. It was, is most of these like online Zoom meetings books, and how should mentoring or implementation work normally?
Yeah, so normally it is over 2 years. They do 13 full day sessions with an implementer. So 13 sessions over 2 years. And I have clients that are all virtual, which is totally fine. I have ones I travel. I'm in Nashville. I just got back from a client in New York, so I will travel or people can come to me. They are all day sessions. And then as they have us, so they pay us by the session day, little fun fact. And we offer a guarantee. If you don't get value with us facilitating, obviously you don't pay us. We bring value. We bring value, but then they have us in between that. So for 2 years, they're getting this business coach, whether it's online or in person, that is working with their team.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, like, you're not a guinea pig. Like if you're a fence contractor listening, and
you are not a guinea pig. It works.
This sounds like a gimmick or any of that kind of stuff. Like this, there's thousands of businesses that operate on this, and even if they don't operate on EOS, they might even operate on similar things, right?
Yep. You need an operating system, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. And this is just I mean, that's just a product, right?
Yep.
What do you do to measure this? So like obviously you're going to measure revenue growth. Like that is a big KPI.
Yes.
Are we growing in revenue? I imagine you look at profitability, but like what other metrics beyond those are you guys measuring to
Yeah. Yep.
basically say, okay, you've been successful or you've not been successful?
Yeah. So what is so great for an EOS company is when, we talk about, we have 6 key components that we operate in, and we measure all 6 of those key components and the tools that we use. So for instance, let's talk about the people component. How do
Okay.
we know that we have the right people in the right seat, in the right roles?
Mm-hmm.
We have metrics that you do with every team member, including the owner, of, hey, are we walking in the core values that we set as a team and as a company? Do we get what our role is? Do we want it? Do we have the capacity to do it? So if we just talk about just the people component,
Mm-hmm.
in an EOS ran company, when it's rolled out, because we baby step the rollout so it's not overwhelming, because it's so simple, but it can seem overwhelming, is that every single team member has some type of measurable that they're responsible for. So let's just say that it's the person answering the phone, because we don't want them to just keep calling, the next fencing contractor. So it's like, hey, their measurable is they answer the call within 30 seconds. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just one example of just a very simple one. But we know that every single person on your team, and we have measurables that we teach you just for the people component alone. Are they a good culture fit? And do they get it, want it, have the capacity to do their role? And are they hitting the measurable for their seat that they're sitting in that's going to help the company get to the vision that we're going for? Like that person, what they're doing now gets us to our 10-year goal,
Yeah. Yeah. And there's different goals you map out because obviously, we've done this in the past. What, are you usually looking at like a 12-month, 3-year, 5-year, 12
Yes.
month,
So
10 year? Like, what does that look like?
we get their 1, 3, and 10-year, plan, picture, and goal, what their 10-year target is. But then we work in a 90-day world. So every 90 days, everybody in the entire company, we call them rocks. They are projects or priorities that are going to help us get to our 1-year plan. So every 90 days, we are working on getting big stuff done. And then, we help them incorporate, and it's hard without having our wheel up on, even on a podcast, to have the wheel for us to be able to see that. But people are able to we change the way that you do meetings. We
Mm-hmm.
totally transform the way that teams do meetings so that they are meeting every week. The leadership team is meeting every week, and they have a pulse on how their rocks are doing. What are their scorecard? Also KPIs in every single department. Oh, thank you. There you go. In every single compartment. So, there's all of these measurables for that. Hey, that vision, is it shared by all? What's our company scorecard? Your processes, what good are your processes if they aren't being followed by all, right? And so these are all the things that we're able to work with in a very systematic, simple way with their teams that get them to that 15 to 30% revenue, which is just icing on the cake, if I'm honest, right? Because everything internally is so healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian put another comment in there. Like, is this only for like contractors in the construction industry, or what other industries does this work in?
Yeah. So the great thing about EOS is it's completely industry agnostic. So there is not one type of company that this does not work with, because it protects who you are and what you do. It just gives you the system to do it better.
Yeah.
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 So
I imagine
industry agnostic. Yep.
Yeah. I imagine you run your business on EOS too.
I do. And to the point of that Brian popped into the chat earlier, what do you do when it's only 2 people? Well, I run my whole practice off of 2 people. It's myself and my executive assistant. And guess what? We run all those 6 key components I have for my business, because I know where it's going in 1, 3, 10 years. 100%. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you see the future of the entrepreneur operating system here? Like, obviously, the principles from 10 years ago are the same thing, Like,
Yeah. And I think
business is business, but like, what is the future of this, do you think?
um, the same. I think that's what makes EOS so amazing is if people are looking for like a quick fix or this silver bullet, they're not going to find that with EOS. We have to pick the hard work now for the long-term gain, like pick your hard, as we say, the pain for the long-term gain is that these business principles that we find in EOS have been sourced from so many different places and Gino's experience working with entrepreneurial companies that it's not going anywhere, and it's in its most simplest form of all the great things that are out there. This is going to be around for 1,000 years, like literally any type of entrepreneurial business, what we're doing inside of our session rooms and putting into these businesses, it makes their impact bigger. And the tools, it's not some newfangled idea, and it's not going to be changed or replaced.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of the biggest challenges I've, seen is you're right. Like people just, there's no accountability across the board. Everybody's just kind of, mumbling and jumbling, and it's not a bad thing. It's just kind of, that's where they're at.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true that if you're operating on something like this, everybody's just kind of on the same page and in sync together, and you're able to head towards that 5-year picture.
Oh, yeah.
And
the sky's the limit. I mean, really, this makes your business so scalable. And the other thing of why some people will reach out to one of your first questions is that a lot of times they are overwhelmed and they're just hitting a ceiling. They're just not sure what their next best is and how to get there, or they've got it in their head, but they don't know how to get the team and to serve their team well. We also get people that come into looking into an exit plan for their business.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to set that up for success, or they want to go to the owner's box. And EOS makes businesses more valuable to sell.
Yeah.
The return that they get of having an EOS ran company. I mean, I've got a story of, it was a childcare center of all things. They had got 5 locations. They ran on EOS. It's how they were able to expand to 5 locations and buying up more. And they went to their bank and they said, they had to do a lot of forecasting. EOS makes you great predictors in forecasting. Like, we make you ninjas at predicting and forecasting in your business. And the bank asked for all of this stuff. Well, they had their scorecard measurables from 4 years. And the bank said, we have never seen anything like this about the predicting. And you've actually been hitting these numbers, because they would predict every 90 days, every year. They're like, and you have proof you've hit and, went over top of all of them. And so that's just the power of EOS, of having some type of operating system to scale your business. I mean, it is such a game changer. The sky's the limit. But a lot of times if people aren't aware of it, and again, they become aware of it, they're like, where has this been? This is what's missing in our business. Yeah.
Brian, super active in here. Another question he just said in here, but he said, we've noticed things have changed with compliance issues, employees, and even how supplies are purchased and supplied to us. Has the EOS changed over time with how businesses and people have changed? I mean, not really. I mean, obviously the culture's changed a little bit, right? But the business practices are still the same thing.
And I think that what makes EOS so amazing is that we're not telling you how to run your business. We take who you are and what you do, and we run it through the business filter, the operating system of EOS. So we help you solve problems more effectively. So to Brian's point, wow, we've got compliance issues. We have, vendors, we have price increase, all of these kinds of things. EOS, we help you have the tools to solve those issues and make them go away forever, or to make decisions faster and quicker. And so that's the housing in which EOS is. We're not telling you what to do, but these tools will never change. You just get better at using the filter to tackle those things that he mentioned, in the fencing industry. We just help you tackle them very quickly, and the team is on the same page. So we don't talk things to death. We get it done. And we come up with a plan of attack.
And then, like you said, when everybody's in sync, everybody's, accountable, and you have everything good, you're going to be light years ahead with that operating system versus, some of the
Yep.
other stuff.
And yeah,
go
go ahead. Sorry. I was just going to say that 90-minute meeting when people, they're like, it literally changes their whole perspective, and really 90 minutes of investment to hear what EOS does, because it's not a sales pitch. It's like the movie version of Traction. So if you like want to know and you're like, okay, I just want the movie version of Traction, that 90 minutes literally could change their business and their future.
Yeah. In closing here, I know there's some of the books that you recommended, right? And I know you mentioned if anybody wants one of those, I imagine
I'll mail one out.
Yeah. Let me I'll put here on the screen for those watching. You can just email Renae. So the email there, Renae.lastname@eosworldwide.com. And we'll put it in the comment section as well. So if you're a fencing business and you're looking to dial in a few things and take your business to the next level, obviously, let's at least get yourself a book and learn a little bit more about that. Like when I first read Traction, right? Like I was just astonished because I started to learn all the things I was doing wrong,
Yes.
And it was a big accountability or self-reflection thing too. It's just like, you'll start to figure out some of the things you're just doing wrong, and it's stopping you from actually growing and taking the company to the next level. And it's limiting the people around you too. If you got 10, 15 team members and you're not growing beyond that size, then the people around you are only going to grow so much too,
Knowing that those people that are on your team, they bring so much to the table, and EOS really helps them showcase that to get the company to where it wants to go. And they're so excited to be a part of that. The other thing too, you can reach out about obviously the free book, free tools. There's just so many things to help people on their journey. And if you are going to be at the Fence Show, I will be doing an education class all about EOS and have great tools. I'll have books at my booth. Stop by. I would love to just be able to help answer any questions. I'll be your business ops question lady. I'll help any way I can.
Well, there you go. Here's the Fence Show. It's going on. What is it? September 10th to the 11th. It's basically mid-September in Vegas. So if you're a fence business, you've probably heard of this show, but if you haven't, you're living under a rock. Definitely.
That's right. You need to get there. You need to come see
me. Yeah. Awesome. Well, in closing here, Renae, is there anything else you'd like to leave for the audience as far as tips and things like that?
I think it's just you owe it to yourself to just delve in to learn about EOS, to say, is this a yes for me? And if not, any operating system, like just pick one. It's just a life changer.
Yeah.
And I just would encourage people that they owe it to themselves and their teams and their clients to get to their next best.
Yeah, love that. And if you guys have any, comments, questions, or anything like that, just, leave them in the comment section below. We'll be getting back to you guys on those soon here. And for those wanting to connect with you, Renae, is it Facebook, your email, website? Like where should people find you?
Yeah, any of the above, but definitely if they just want to, you can also go to leadingtoscale.com, which will get you to all my stuff super, super quick. But if you just go to Renae.Luketic at EOS Worldwide and you want to email me, that also works great. But Leading to Scale will get you to me quick.
Yeah, Leading to Scale, that's probably your website or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Awesome. Sweet. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on here, and super blessed to, be able to have this relationship with you. And I'm excited to see what you're going to be able to do here at the Fence Show next month.
Yes. So good. We have a lot of stuff coming to the FWA community with EOS, and some great leadership stuff and some tools coming along. So it's going to be a great kickoff at the Fence Show.
Awesome. 100%. Cool. Well, I appreciate you guys all tuning in today for the podcast, and we'll see you guys next week.